It took me long enough. I'm finally here. Let's talk about this Canadian women's national team window. One win, one loss against Argentina. What does it mean? Well, let's talk about it. All right, guys, you know the deal. What does it mean is our match recap. And we didn't do the first matchup. So we just did both matchups here in this window to talk a little bit about what we've learned in them. Again, we are the Canadian African content. We're going to have a CAF quarterfinals as well as the 9th and 10th place recap video coming up this weekend. We're here to talk about the Canadian women. One win and one loss versus Argentina in their April window. And I know the loss is going to come and create a lot of talking points, but it should. I don't think you can expect to win every game, but let's get into the happenings and the haps of this side. Guys, so we had Canada v Argentina in two of their matchups this April in BC, playing on the good old BC turf in the beautiful lands of British Columbia. Very interesting to see kind of how Casey Stoney wants to continue to build. Before this, we saw the announcement that Canada is going to be playing the US on July 2nd, after Canada Day, before the 4th of July in Washington. So prepare to not have that game have any political undercurrents at all. I don't want to hear Freebird anymore. That is just my personal take. But we had Canada playing Argentina. This was going to be an interesting matchup. Argentina is a team, I think, structurally, defensively, are going to sit back, take their opportunities on the counter, and really try to escape with a win. They don't have many opportunities against a team like Canada, so they have to make their chances really count. But it's 2025, and something you're going to hear me say a lot. I think this is an opportunity not only because there are no competitive games for Canada, but also because it's a new coach. It's time to take a look at the depth. It's time to look at the players 1 through 40. Okay, I don't care. 1 through 55. I think it's time for us to really look at the depth, because we could treat this roster interesting. And I say we, as if I have a choice here. I think Stoney has an opportunity here to tinker around, to see depth, but also start to create that internal fire. Now, players will have a fire, but create the reality that not every position is safe. Now, yes, you can see positions that work well. You could see positions where you say, okay, yeah, there's clearly a hierarchy to this, but why not talk about where that hierarchy could be, what those opportunities could look like in that sense? So let's start about that first matchup here at BC Place. We had Canada winning that matchup 3-0. Beautiful game overall. We had goals in the 24th minute, goals in the 39th minute, and goals in the 87th minute. Throwing up some of that stats up here for you to see. Jade Rose with her first goal for Canada. Unrelated, I realized I had a gif of Seal singing "Kissed by a Rose" in my drafts, and I wondered why. Now I remember why. It was because I had to be clever with my responses here. Nichelle Prince, after good work from Adriana Leon to get that second goal, and Julia Grosso off of the post in the 87th minute. This was the type of game that I think a lot of us expected. We look at the stats here. We're on goal here, guys, just for the record. 18 shots, 9 on target, 3 goals. The Argentinian keeper was standing on her head, making save after save. Possession 65-35, 500 passes to 282. And this is the type of game you're expecting. 15 fouls for Canada, less, no yellows, 7 corners, and 1 goal off of a set piece. I think that's the interesting thing. For me, I always look at set pieces. Can you create great opportunities from them? If you have 7 corners, you have 18 shots overall in that position, that's cool. This isn't the U17s in CONCACAF where Canada wins 22-0. But I think it's a good game, and this is what a lot of us expected. Look at the lineups that Casey Stoney pulled out for this game. You had Gabby Carl in the back line with Vanessa Gilles, Jade Rose, and Ashley Lawrence, Kaylin Sheridan in net. You had Janine Sonis. Apparently Google hasn't received the merit certificate yet, but Janine Sonis, Jesse Fleming, Emma Reagan, Marielle Du, Adriana Leon, and Nichelle Prince. 6 substitutions were made in this game in that 4-4-2, bringing on Chelina Zadorsky, Quinn, Deanne Rose, Julia Grosso, Beyonce Georges, and Nia Rose. I know we had admin for Canada. WNT had some fun times with 2 roses. Listen, when we get the rose to rose, someone on Twitter actually let me know that Bianca's middle name is Rose. So we could have a rose to middle name Rose to rose to rose goal, and we're going to call it a bouquet. We're going to do it. We're going to call it a bouquet. But seeing these players, I think it was great to see Zadorsky. I think she's doing her part in her center back position to continue to play well. Quinn back in the roster, I think, is curious, especially with the emergence of Emma Reagan. You see that the midfield, and you're like, ooh, it's getting crowded from a competitive standpoint. Reagan's emerging. Aouja, when she's healthy, you figure, will factor into it as well. Plus a Jesse Fleming, who always gives that poise in the middle. But then also a Julia Grosso. Where is her best position? Is it out wide? Is it in the middle? I think it's a very curious conversation. Bianca St. George also factors into that. Is she more of a fullback? I know she's been playing further up the pitch at club. So do you view her as that outside midfielder or a winger in this case? Or do you view her more as a fullback? Either way, it opens up the doors for a lot of possibilities for what we can see with her. So I think with that player being the case, we saw a lot of, other than Nia Rose, we saw a lot of the established names that we've seen for a while, right? Quinn, Deanne Rose back on our team, Julia Grosso, Beyonce St. George's, and the likes. And I think what makes it interesting is now we have a conversation in terms of what is the line, or everything that we can look at in terms of. So we get to see these players play in this type of a opportunity, and against an opposition like Argentina. Yes, it's going to be a little bit more defensive from there. They aren't going to play full out with you, but you get to see those players start to push forward. But to me, it's like, okay, you're seeing all the roster, and we'll get to some of the players that we saw in terms of possibilities going forward, and kind of looking at that. When we go to their second game, right, this is the game where Canada loses 1-0 to Argentina. Yamila Rodriguez off of a short corner free kick for Argentina, 34th minute. The stats, regardless, pretty much feel the same, right? Starlight Stadium is a little bit more narrow. So because of that, defense may be a little bit easier. But, the stats are eerily identical, right? 18-6 shots, 4 on target. That's, I think, where the difference is. You had 9 shots on target at BC Place, 4 versus at the Starlight. 70-30 possession, that's 65-35. 427 passes, 203 accuracy there. Less fouls. You saw a much more fouling side on Argentina. Last time we saw them play Argentina in Spain, we had a whole conversation about refs and managing the game. To me, that was just like manage a game well. Here, if this was if you had VAR, maybe you have a few more egregious fouls going your way. You had 5 yellows for Argentina, 1 red going there, 11 corners, 4 shots on target. I think that's where you get the concern. That is definitely where you get the concern in that game. But for the second game, it was a heavily rotated game. We're not making excuses, it's just the reality of it, which makes this interesting, right? Google has this as a 4-2-3-1. This may have still been a 4-4-2 with Deanne Rose and Ali Du leading the line. Ali Du more in that 10 role. But you had Gabby Carl, Jade Rose, Chelina Zadorsky, Jay Riviere, Sabrina D'Angelo in the back. I'm sure she wants that free kick back. She could do no wrong. She's from Welland. Carly Wickenheiser, Quinn, Kayla Briggs, Ali Du and Grosso. I think that is the most curious thing. Grosso out wide is interesting. I think a lot of eyes were on Deanne Rose for the opportunities that she would have missed in this game. And I think, again, this felt again, I almost want to say Starlight is cursed. They always just give up an early goal in Starlight because it's always a heavily rotated game. But you kind of saw some of the struggle in terms of how fluid they looked. I think the forward line looked great. The midfield was a little bit more curious, with Quinn trying to be that connector between Wickenheiser and the forwards, Alidu, Grosso, Deanne Rose, and in some cases Caleb Briggs. Not to say that they struggled, but I feel as if there were a lot of opportunities where it just wasn't on the same page. And not that Quinn was playing out of character, they just weren't cohesive, and the whole team wasn't cohesive. So you give up one free kick, you put it away, and then you ultimately get Canada falling to Argentina. Now in this game, we did see some rotation as well. Well, now Google can make things. Lawrence came in, Sonis came in, Flemmy came in, Leon, Bianca St. George's again, Holly Ward, another young player. And I think this is a point where we said this at the top of the video. We'll say it again at the bottom of the video. I think this is a year just to rotate through. I don't think they're going to win every game this year. We already mentioned they have the U.S. coming up in July. But this is an opportunity for them to really see what they have and see if they can start to turn up some of the heat on these positions. We've had a women's program who've been unchallenged for a bit. Now, whether that is they've been playing at such a high level that they haven't been able to be challenged, or maybe the opportunities didn't come, but we have young players. Caleb Briggs, to me, put in a great shift at Starlight. Holly Ward getting minutes truly, I think, is a good sight to see in terms of opportunities for the player. And Holly Ward came in the pull her here. Ward came out for Briggs, so you had a young player for young player coming out in the 64 minutes. So we got a nice 20 plus minute showcase for Holly Ward. And to me, it's see what they can do. Adversity is free, right? Let's see how they react to it. I mean, you see that with the U.S. team where they're able to start to integrate it. That's something Emma Hayes has done well. Integrate some of these young, hungry players and start to push the established players there to play better. And it's worked in some ways. In other ways, it's, look, we have all the Thompsons. Michelle Cooper is doing her thing. Jaden Shaw is still a thing. Sophia Smith, when healthy, is still a thing. And so, can we get that on the Canadian side? I mean, we've seen tastes of a Geneva Hernandez great. We're now seeing Holly Ward, Caleb Briggs, right? I know there's a lot of Canadians who are asking for, hey, when will Annabelle Chukwu get her call up? People were even saying a Kaylee Hunter could deserve a shout to come through. I think it's beyond time just to bring these players and see how they react to training. Again, as a fan, we don't get to see training, what that looks like, but what we do get to see is we get to see them perform in the game. I think that will be interesting. I think with the July matchup coming up, that might be a good opportunity to see what that gap is between those two programs. Emma Hayes has done a great job to turn over the American side. And when we get to the Canadian side, I think it's a conversation of what is the gap, right? One of the Bev's drawbacks was in probably a period where the U.S. was the most vulnerable, we got effectively draws, right? Losses and penalties in that sense. We weren't able to get that result. In that same period, we saw Mexico get a result against the U.S. We saw other nations that Canada was able to fare decently or well against. They got results against the U.S. and we weren't able to do so. So I think it'll be interesting. I'm not going to take too much from it again. I think 2025 for me is a year of evaluation. Let's see the kids. I've said this. I threw up a clip of a conversation I had with Woso North. Bring the kids. Bring those players who are pushing. Create the environment, create an environment of competition that can then push players who want to get into the 23, but also in your 23, have them push to continue to maintain that high level. And then from there, I think it'll be an interesting conversation in terms of what is coming next in terms of players because I mean we're leaving Kayla Briggs up here, but I think right now she's the embodiment. She looked great in her shift. She brought a little bit of that hunger there. Right? She brought an energy. Really was hoping that she could get that first goal, but you saw that in her. And I think there are more players who could start to bring that. Again, show me your level and then show them what that level is against higher competition here. So I'm very much excited to see what they look like, what they're able to do, because at the end of the day, they're building towards 2026 and then 2027. So let's see the kids. Let's see those players who have been knocking on the door of the program. Right? Let's give some of our veterans some time. I know this comes to conversation of, I've said it, I'll leave it in the video that I said before, probably clipped here somewhere. I think they can afford to give some players some time off, some of the regulars, and see others. Get them into the environment, see who steps up, see who can be a leader, see who isn't afraid of the moment, right? I think it'll be curious to see. 2025 is the year to discover, and I'm very much curious to see and what we discover for this women's national team in Canada. As always, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'm gonna stop talking right here.